So today I'm going to talk to you guys about love poetry, and not like the traditional romantic love poetry, but more the darker side. And I'll be talking about two poets, one written by Glenn Calhoun and one written by Fleur Adcock, who are both New Zealand poets that we should have all had a bit of understanding with, that we talked about in class. And they both use a variety of poetic techniques to discuss their themes and ideas surrounding the darker side of love. So the first poem is Let Me Describe You Her Eyes by Glenn Calhoun, and he uses the techniques metaphor and simile to describe his themes and ideas that his love is dying, and basically that love can die, and the extreme pain that's associated with the death of his love, and that's all encompassed in his main purpose, which is to show us that sometimes that means we hurt the ones we love, and the carry-on effect from that can actually result in the love never being the same, and even the death of it. And the second poem is Advice to a Discarded Lover by Fleur Adcock, and she uses techniques like symbolism, metaphor and personification to describe her themes that love dies. It isn't meant to last forever, and she's actually really blunt about that fact. She's a lot more harsh about it than Glenn Calhoun is. And she talks about how pain in the aftermath is not spread equally amongst partners, like Glenn Calhoun wants us to believe. And that's all encompassed in her message that love is temporary and beautiful, but it actually dies really easily. And so both these poems talk about the main purpose, that love is fragile, and it never follows the expected path that we all want it to in the beginning. So, symbolism. Fleur Adcock uses symbolism and advice to a discarded lover by using a dead bird's rotting carcass to represent her dead love. And think now, if you had found a dead bird, what do you feel? More pity or more revulsion? And the use of a dead bird really develops quite a few of Fleur Adcock's ideas. Like just this quote shows us that passion or love is temporary and can easily be replaced with pity and disgust. So the bird is love. And Fleur Adcock has used the connotations that are associated with birds to describe her love. Connotations such as beautiful, delicate, short lifespan. They can both reach great heights, but just like love can reach great heights, it can also reach great lows. So it fluctuates like a bird flying in the sky. And so imagine you're walking home from school and you see a dead bird on the side of the road, and it looks fine from the outside, but it's obviously lifeless. What do you feel when you see like this innocent dead bird on the side of the road? Because initially Fleur Adcock feels pity, because a dead bird is like a wasted beauty and it's supposed to be sad. And just like a dead love is a wasted beauty and it's supposed to be sad. But with a closer look, you'll find it quickly turns to revulsion as you notice the maggots close to the surface. And this is another quote derived from the poem, where she's describing her repulsion. And the maggots represent the tiny niggles and parasites that started the death of the love in the first place. You know, things like the faults of your other partner, or like fights or things they may have said or done. And as soon as you notice those things and you remember those things, you quickly lose the pity stage and probably turns into gratefulness that you're not with them anymore. And so Fleur Adcock's used the fragile status of a bird. You know, they're weak and they're light and they're fragile, but they can also fly around and be uncontrollable. And she's used those characters to say that imagining that love should last a lifetime is like expecting a bird to live forever, and she's saying that that's impossible. So she also uses metaphors and personification to describe her repulsion for him, and how she feels like no pain and he feels all the pain. And this is an example. If I were to touch you, I would feel fat, moist worm skin. And this is describing her repulsion at even the thought of a rekindled intimacy with her ex-lover. And the word touch shows us this because touch represents the intimacy of a relationship. And she feels if they were ever to touch again in that way, that she'll be repulsed. And we know this by her use of words that draw the emotions of repulsion in both the reader and her. Words like fat, which is an offensive, blunt, hurtful word, which shows she really doesn't care about his feelings anymore. Because imagine if your ex came up to you and was like, oh, you're a fat this, you're a fat that. They obviously do not care whether or not they get back with you anymore. Because to Fleur Adcock, her lover is just a worm. A faceless, lifeless, low-life, spineless, disgusting, slimy worm. And those are not traits that I consider to be describing someone that you care about anymore. And so she feels no pain in the separation, and he feels all the pain. As she describes him using personification, you are eaten up by self-pity. And the word pity is really good because it shows that, see, he's still in the pity stage that we talked about before. And so he's still caught up in the remorse and the pain. And pity is a really interesting term because when you say you pity someone, it's not a flattering term. Like if you're empathizing with someone that you feel is your equal, you'll say, oh, I feel for you, oh, I'm really sorry that happened for you. You wouldn't be like, oh, I pity you. That's a term you use when you feel like you're above that person. And so it shows she has no respect for him. And the word you is a direct term. It's you are eaten up by self-pity. So she's not involved in it at all. She's not associating herself with that. He's eaten up by it, which shows he's been completely devoured by it, and it's left him looking pathetic and like gravelling to get her back, she feels. And so he's left looking pathetic while she remains unburdened by the loss of him. So clearly, love, the pain isn't distributed evenly as she's showing us here. So Glenn Calhoun uses metaphors as well in his poem by describing her eyes to a gun. In the quote, her eyes were two guns in the hands of a killer. So that's describing, at the beginning of the poem, the start of a fight between them. And so it probably started with something like a death stare or a glare, as the gun is like something that shoots, so she probably shot him like a death stare across the room. And hands of a killer is describing the wife. Connotations associated with killer are things like hostile, unpredictable, cold, heartless. And you don't usually associate the word killer with someone that kills accidentally. Like a killer is someone who sets out to do a job and they kill them and it's premeditated. And so he's saying, in that moment, she's a hostile, unpredictable, cold, heartless woman who shoots him down in cold blood and leaves him there to die, basically. And it's also related to the cliche of looks could kill, which is a cliche that we should all understand. But he makes it more sinister by adding her, which adds a subject to it, which means she's the one doing it, no one else. And he removes the if, which effectively removes any doubt, so it's definitely happening. She's definitely killing him. And that all ends with the pain of death, because the death of love causes huge amounts of pain for him. Sorry. Imagine if the one who was supposed to care for you and you invest your deepest insecurities into them, and they just pull it out from underneath you. It would hurt. Simile. He also uses simile and timid as a small boy cleaning his gun to describe how she comes to him to apologise at the end of the fight. And he's comparing the fight and its aftermath to a gun, which has a lot of comparisons that we can use, such as, like a gun, a fight can go off at any time. When cleaning a gun, you have to be extremely careful to do it without setting it off, which is what she's trying to do. And he's saying that after a fight, you walk on eggshells around each other. And she apologises because she feels guilty, and she feels guilty before she loves him, showing that sometimes without meaning to, we hurt the ones we love. And the killer will clean the weapon to wipe off any evidence of what they've done, but he's saying it doesn't take away what she's actually done, and it's pretty much ruined the love for him in a way. And like a small boy, love is fragile. And he's basically saying at the end of that, each fight, the gun gets harder to clean, until eventually the gun is useless, and that effectively means the love is dead. So all of this shows us that love is fragile, and Glenn Calhoun has used metaphors, similes, and Fleur Adcock has used symbolism, metaphors, and personification. So I hope you all learned something today, and when you read the poems you understand them a bit better. Thanks.
Very well done.